Hello and welcome to my video on Atlas Rogues, a new turn-based tactics roguelite game that's just come out via early access on Steam and the developer's own Glyph launcher, at an introductory price of $15 US. It's currently set for a full release next year in 2021. I want to say at the start here that this video is sponsored by Atlas Rogues, and the developers have also provided me a key for the game for this video, so thanks very much for that. And I want to be clear, this is not a review, it's merely a showcase of the game, plus a few of my early impressions at the end, after about 5 or so hours of play. Now, you may not know this, but over the years of running this channel, I have received a lot of requests to cover certain games, both with and without sponsorship opportunities attached. And 99% of them I've turned away, because they wouldn't be something I'd personally play or be interested in. This is not the case with Atlas Rogues. What caught my eye initially is its unique mix of genres, roguelite and turn-based tactics, both of which I played a ton of over the years, and also covered on this channel before. While I've played hundreds of hours of different roguelites over the years like The Binding of Isaac, FTL, Nuclear Throne, Hades, and tons of others, if you've watched any of my coverage of XCOM 2, Phoenix Point, or Regicide, you'll know that I really love turn-based tactics games in particular. Something about the genre always seems to pique my interest, and the idea of combining that with the constantly fresh and exciting nature of a roguelite seems like a smart idea. Now you might be sitting here thinking, hold on, Atlas Rogues sounds familiar. Didn't I hear about this game a few years ago? Which is exactly what I thought, but there is an explanation. So, in 2016 there was a predecessor to this game called Atlas Reactor, which had a similar concept, but was instead a turn-based 4v4 PvP game rather than the PvE experience Atlas Rogues is today. Unfortunately, that original title was shut down last year, with the plan going forward to give it a huge overhaul and relaunch it later down the line. Now, I personally didn't play Atlas Reactor when it was out, but if this PC Gamer article here is to be believed, then the game incorporated a lot of smart ideas, while running into more than a few issues due to its unique mix of genres and the PvP nature of it. And reading around, it seems like there was a pretty decent community forming around the game too. And while I would never say I'm glad a game didn't succeed, I will say I'm happy to see Atlas Rogue drop the PvP in favour of a single player focused experience. I've never been at the top of the charts of any sort of competitive game, and I much prefer to be able to take my time and enjoy something at my own pace. Gameplay wise, Atlas Rogues is a turn-based tactics game that incorporates roguelite elements that change up the game each time you make your way through a run. The premise is simple. You have 30 days to stop a nuclear reactor meltdown, and if you fail, boom, that's the end of the world. Whoops. A full run will likely only take you 2 or 3 hours, so thankfully you don't lose too much progress each time you restart, though it can definitely still hurt. You undertake combat missions and conduct dialogue-based recons to earn funds, gear, and intel that will help you succeed in shutting down the reactor, with each of these events costing a certain number of days. Each run is unique thanks to a variety of different mechanics. At the beginning, you choose 4 different freelancers to make up your squad. There's only the base 4 to start with, but there's 6 more to unlock in the current build. Each are unique in that they have their own classes, abilities, and talents. For example, Lockwood here is your gunslinger assassin hybrid guy who could bounce bullets off walls and fire a cone of bullets that can hit multiple enemies at once. Another freelancer, Zuki, has a rocket launcher, which she can simply use to explode enemies from a distance, or if they get too close, she can rocket jump away and damage them in the process. Some of these abilities have cooldowns, and some can even be used for free and not count against your available actions. You can also get temporary boosts via pickups on the map, which can provide things like healing, extra damage, or a shot of energy to your reserves. It's worth noting too that both you and your enemy's health pools are fairly large. Each freelancer feels unique, and they can be further differentiated with different offensive, defensive, and utility items that you gather throughout a run. There's also an upgrade system where you develop your freelancers with fresh abilities and passive bonuses. As for the combat missions themselves, each are randomized, so you're never going to get the same mission twice. And unlike a lot of other turn-based tactics games, they're quite bite-sized and usually only take 5 or 10 minutes. They range in difficulty and reward levels, so you can take a bigger risk if you think you've got what it takes to pull it off. If a squad member is killed, you can revive them mid-mission using revive tokens, which are in short supply. You start with a few and you can get more of them throughout the run, but they're few and far between, so it's best to just not have your team die in the first place. And keep in mind, this game is basically in a permanent Iron Man mode, so to speak, so if your entire team is wiped out, it's game over. You can't save scum your way out of this one. Alongside the standard missions, there's also Stronghold Trusts. The game features 3 of these trusts, all of which are big opposing factions, and if you can gather enough intel on any of them by filling this counter down here to 100%, you get the ability to assault the trust stronghold. These missions are significantly more difficult, but dole out extremely valuable rewards that are almost certainly going to make it worth your while to pursue them. As you progress through a run, the enemies you fight will get harder and harder, both in the types of opponents you'll be facing, as well as with unique escalations. These are modifiers that will passively ramp up the difficulty, with certain enemies possibly gaining special abilities, more stats, among other things. By the end, Atlas Rogues can get pretty difficult, and you'll need to be smart about how you use your freelancers' abilities in battle, and especially how you can use them to complement each other. Everything's been made with combos in mind, and you'll be rewarded if you can utilize them effectively. Like placing a tripwire and then knocking an enemy through it with another character's melee attack, for example. It's worth noting too that both you and your enemy's health pools are fairly large, and everyone will usually take at least a handful of shots to be taken down. This means you won't find yourself getting KO'd in a single hit from some sniper across the map you didn't see, but likewise you can't do the same to your enemies. Something to keep in mind when there's a lot of hostiles that are swarming your position. And while I didn't get the chance to try it myself, Atlas Rogues can also be played in co-op with shared progression across 4 players. And as for other features, there's also a pretty extensive list of challenges to complete, and it also functions as a way to unlock some of the new characters. And a quick note on the general presentation before we get to my initial impressions. While obviously quite a visually stylized game, I think the art direction is pretty unoffensive, and there's some pretty slick graphics, animations and sound effects to go along with it, especially in the case of all the weapons. And man, the soundtrack for this game really slaps. It is darn good. Like I said at the start of this video, Atlas Rogues is indeed in early access. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the game is feature complete or completely bug free. While I didn't personally run into anything game breaking in my 5 or so hours, I did have a few issues, like having the camera position itself inside walls some of the times, and finding missing text in some of the tooltips. But these are pretty minor and I'm sure they'll be ironed out in the time before release. There are a couple of things I would like to see some more work done on in particular as well. The UI is probably the main one, especially in the overworld screen. As of right now, it's quite static and it doesn't feel very lively or responsive. It could definitely use some animations, video, and other dynamic elements. I'd also like to see more voice acting for the characters, and maybe some cinematics or further development on the presentation side of things. It's a little lackluster just clicking through text boxes and reading what these admittedly cool looking and uniquely designed characters have to say. The intro cinematic is great and it does a lot to give Atlas Rogues some real character. More of this, please. Thankfully, there's a lot of things planned to be released before the final game comes out, including new freelancers, gameplay features, modes, and story enhancements. So I'm excited to see what will be expanded upon in the future. I think the gameplay is solid and quite unique, and with some more work over the early access period, it could definitely evolve into a title with a level of success on the horizon that its predecessor Atlas Reactor clearly strived to achieve. Thanks very much for watching. If you want to check out the game, then there's a link in the description. And if you'd like to follow me for updates on the channel and future videos, then you can do so over on Twitter. Thanks again very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.